The day of my son's wedding was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. The hall was filled with bright lights, soft music, and more than 150 excited guests. Everyone wore big smiles, and I sat quietly at the corner table, wanting the whole celebration to belong to Ethan and his bride, Brittany. I never liked being the center of attention. I only wanted my son to enjoy his moment. Ethan looked proud in his suit, shaking hands with guests and laughing from table to table. I watched him with a warm heart, remembering the boy he used to be, the little child who once held my hand tightly whenever we crossed the street. Now he was a grown man, standing tall, starting a new chapter. I felt honored just to witness it. But even from my seat, I noticed something strange. Brittany kept glancing at me again and again. Each time her mother, Mrs. Collins, leaned close and whispered something in her ear. Their eyes kept drifting back to me, then to the small gift bag I had beside me, the one that held nothing but a handkerchief and my house keys. At first I thought they were looking at something behind me, but their stares were too direct, too sharp. When the couple finished their first dance, Brittany suddenly told Ethan to stay with the guests while she walked toward me. Her heels clicked loudly on the floor. People turned to look. Mrs. Collins followed right behind her, smiling the way someone smiles before trouble begins. They stopped right in front of my table. "Mr. Turner," Brittany said loudly, placing her hand on her hip. "I need the key to your apartment." Her voice echoed through the hall. Several guests turned their heads. I blinked, unsure I heard her correctly. "My apartment key," I repeated gently. "Why would you need that today of all days?" "Because I'm your daughter now," she said with a proud smile. "And as the wife of your son, I should have access to everything he will inherit. So I need the key, right now." The hall grew quiet. Even the music seemed to soften. I sat up straight. "Brittany," I said calmly, "that apartment is my home. I worked many years to build it. You will always be welcome there, but I cannot hand you my key." Her expression changed instantly. The smile faded. Her eyes narrowed. Mrs. Collins stepped in. "Just give her the key," she said sharply. "You're making this difficult." "I am not trying to create any problem," I replied, still calm, "but I cannot give away something that belongs to me." Before I could finish speaking, Brittany raised her hand and slapped me across the face. The sound was loud enough for everyone to hear. My cheek burned and gasps filled the hall. People froze. Ethan rushed forward in confusion. I could see shame in his eyes. But I said nothing. I slowly stood, straightened my jacket, and walked toward the exit. I did not argue. I did not turn back. Outside, the cool air touched my face where the slap landed. I took a long, steady breath, reached into my pocket, and pulled out my phone. There was only one person I could call, and after all these years, I dialed Mr. Harris. As I waited outside the hall for Mr. Harris to arrive, memories from many years ago rose in my mind like old photographs. I stood near the parking lot, away from the noise of the wedding, and for a moment it felt as if the world had gone still. The cold air helped clear my thoughts, but it also brought back the story that led me to raise Ethan alone. I lost my wife when Ethan was only 8 years old. She was gentle and patient, the kind of woman who could calm a crying child just by touching his cheek. When she passed, the house felt too quiet. I had to learn how to braid hair, pack lunch boxes, and soothe bad dreams. Ethan would sit beside me at the dining table while I tried to balance bills and his homework at the same time. It wasn't easy, but somehow we kept going. Over the years, Ethan grew into a respectful young man. He always tried to make me proud. He worked hard, listened well, and never complained. When he finished school and got a stable job, I felt like my work as a father had finally taken shape. Then one evening, he came home smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Dad," he said, "I met someone." That someone was Brittany. The first time she visited our home, she looked around my apartment with a strange expression, almost like she was inspecting a place she already owned. She didn't touch anything. She only stared at my furniture, the walls, the framed photo of Ethan's mother. When I asked if she wanted a drink, she shook her head and whispered something to Ethan, who looked embarrassed. I noticed how she often paused in the hallway, standing in front of the door that led to my bedroom. She didn't open it, but she stared at the lock as if she was imagining how the key might feel in her hand. Later that night, after she left, Ethan sighed. "Dad, she said your apartment is very small," he said softly. "And she asked who will own it when I get married." I smiled gently. "It's my home, Ethan. But one day, when I'm gone, everything I have will be yours. That's how family works." He nodded, but I could see the tension building in his eyes. As the months passed, Brittany's comments became bolder. She asked if she could store her belongings at my place since she will soon be family. She questioned my choices in furniture. She even asked why I still lived there alone, as if I should hand everything over just because my son was getting married. Her mother wasn't any better. Mrs. Collins once said in a joking tone, "You know, Mr. Turner, in many families, the new bride takes charge of the father's home. It's a sign of respect." I simply smiled. "Respect must be earned," I replied quietly. During the wedding preparations, I tried to stay out of the way. Brittany often ignored my suggestions. Her mother corrected me in front of strangers. I swallowed many small insults for Ethan's happiness. But when she slapped me in front of all those guests, something inside me told me it was enough. A black car slowly drove into the parking lot. It was Mr. Harris. He stepped out, looking exactly the same, serious, steady, and carrying memories that were never easy to face. "Turner," he said, walking toward me. "It's time," I answered. When Mr. Harris stepped out of the car, it felt as if the years between us had suddenly vanished. He was a tall man with tired eyes, the kind of eyes that had seen too much and kept too many secrets. We had not spoken in a long time, not because of anger, but because our last meeting ended with a truth neither of us wanted to face again. He walked up to me and placed a firm hand on my shoulder. "You look tired, Turner," he said quietly. "I've had better days," I replied. He glanced toward the wedding hall behind me. The music had grown louder again, as if nothing had happened inside. People were dancing, laughing, taking photos, completely unaware that something far deeper was unfolding just outside the doors. "What exactly happened?" he asked. I let out a slow breath. "She slapped me," I said. "Brittany slapped me in front of everyone, and then she demanded my house key because she says she deserves it." Mr. Harris closed his eyes for a moment, then shook his head. "I always feared this day would come," he said. I knew what he meant. Our connection to Brittany's family was something we had both tried to bury years ago. There was a time when Mr. Harris had been close to them, close enough to know the things they hid behind their smiles and fancy clothes, things they hoped the world would never discover. Years ago, before Brittany was even an adult, Mr. Harris worked with her family on a business project. At that time, Mrs. Collins presented herself as respectful and trustworthy. But behind closed doors, she was a woman who would do anything to get what she wanted. Money, influence, power. Nothing was off limits for her. Mr. Harris eventually uncovered something serious, something that could have destroyed their entire reputation if it ever came out. He confronted them quietly, hoping to settle it without noise, but they threatened him, humiliated him, and tried to ruin his career. That was when I met him. He came to me one night many years ago, shaken and afraid, telling me everything. I listened, not because I wanted to hear it, but because I had once worked in a position where people came to me for advice. He showed me documents, messages, and evidence, things that would have caused a storm if they reached the authorities. I kept his secret, not because I supported what Brittany's family had done, but because Ethan was young, and I didn't want my son to grow up carrying the weight of another family's shame. I believed that if we stayed silent, the past would stay buried. But life never works that way. I should have told Ethan earlier, I admitted. No, Mr. Harris said. You protected him. You did the best you could. He looked toward the hall again. But now that Brittany and her mother have begun acting like they own your life, they need to understand that the past doesn't disappear just because they pretend it never happened. I nodded slowly. What do you want me to do? He asked. Just walk in with me, I replied. Let the truth appear on its own. No shouting, no fighting, no chaos. We will simply show up. He put his hands in his pockets and took a long breath. All right, Turner. If this is the day it all comes out, then let it come. We both started walking toward the hall, side by side, steady and unafraid. Inside the hall, the atmosphere had changed since I walked out. The music was still playing, but the joy had thinned. Guests sat in small groups, whispering to one another. Some people kept glancing at the entrance, expecting me to return. Others looked uncomfortable, as though the slap they witnessed had left a stain on the celebration. Ethan stood with his hands on his head, pacing near the stage. He looked worried, embarrassed, and unsure what to do. Every few minutes, he pulled out his phone and tried calling me again. I knew the calls were still going to voicemail. He kept checking the door like a child waiting for his father to enter and fix everything. Across the hall, Brittany sat at a round table with her arms folded tightly across her chest. Her expression was sharp, almost irritated, as if she was the one wronged. She was surrounded by her bridesmaids, who looked unsure whether to comfort her or walk away. Mrs. Collins sat beside her, speaking loudly enough for people nearby to hear. "She is your husband's father or not," she said. "If he respected you, he would have handed over the key. You only asked for what you deserve." A few guests shifted uncomfortably. One man tried to speak up gently. "Ma'am, maybe today wasn't the right time." Mrs. Collins cut him off. "Are you the one who raised the groom?" "No, so stay out of it." Brittany smirked and leaned back, acting unfazed. Ethan finally walked over to them, rubbing his forehead. "Why did you slap my dad?" he asked softly. His voice wasn't angry, it was hurt. Brittany rolled her eyes. "Because he disrespected me," she answered. "He should have handed over the key instead of embarrassing me like that." Ethan stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. "He didn't embarrass you," he said. "You embarrassed yourself." Mrs. Collins leaned forward. "Ethan, don't speak to your wife like that. Your father needs to understand that the family has changed." Ethan didn't reply. He simply turned away and walked toward the stage again, breathing shakily. It was clear that his world was starting to bend. Just then, the DJ lowered the music to adjust his system, and the hall became strangely quiet. Conversations dropped as several guests turned toward the entrance. The doors had opened. I stepped inside with Mr. Harris walking beside me. At first, the guests simply looked curious, but the moment they recognized who was standing next to me, everything changed. Gasps filled the room. Some people covered their mouths. A few women stood up, tears already forming in their eyes. Several older guests whispered Mr. Harris's name in disbelief, their voices shaking. Ethan froze where he stood. Brittany's face went pale. Mrs. Collins's glass slipped from her hand and hit the floor. Mr. Harris didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The whole hall already understood that the past Brittany's family hoped no one would remember had just walked through the door with me. And in that moment, the noise of the wedding faded into complete silence as the truth began to settle over everyone like a heavy blanket. The days after Victoria fled were slow, quiet, and strangely peaceful. For the first time in months, my house felt like mine again. No tension in the air, no forced conversations, no shadow of deceit hanging over every interaction. I spent most evenings sitting by the fireplace, reviewing everything that had happened, trying to understand where I went wrong and how I could have seen the signs earlier. But on the fifth day, everything changed. I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. The voice on the other end was calm but strained. "Ethan? It's Daniel, Victoria's brother. We need to talk." I'd only met Daniel twice. He was the quiet one in the family, polite, reserved, and nothing like his manipulative sister or controlling father. If he was calling, it had to be serious. "I'll come over," he said. "This can't wait." When he arrived that afternoon, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles, rumpled clothes, and a heaviness in his posture. He stepped inside slowly, as if the weight of what he carried was almost too much. "Ethan," he said quietly, "I owe you the truth, and I owe you an apology." He handed me a thick brown envelope. Inside were printed screenshots, bank statements, text messages, and even a few police notes. My hands froze as I read the dates, the names, the patterns. Each story was the same. Victoria met a man, pretended to fall in love, slowly isolated him from friends and family, drained his finances through manipulation and emotional pressure, then disappeared before they realized what had happened. 3 men, 3 lives, and I had been next on the list. My stomach twisted. Why didn't anyone stop her? Daniel rubbed his face, shame pooling in his voice. Our family covered for her. Father always said it was just survival, that she deserved comfort, no matter who gave it to her. I went along with it for years, pretending not to know what she was doing. But when she targeted you, something felt different. You weren't careless or desperate like the others. You were kind. You tried. And she still planned to destroy you. He swallowed deeply. When I saw her packing last week, I followed her. She told me everything. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I sat back, the truth both painful and liberating. "So, where is she now?" "She tried to leave the country," he said, "under another name. But your report, combined with the evidence I gave, finally made the authorities flag her. Ethan, they detained her at the airport this morning." For a moment I didn't speak. Relief washed over me, not because she was caught, but because it was over. The nightmare, the manipulation, the betrayal, all of it. Finished. Daniel stood. "I'm truly sorry. I didn't protect you when I should have." "You did now," I said, and I meant it. That evening I closed my door and felt a calm I hadn't felt in years. I hadn't lost anything. My home, my money, my sanity, all still mine. What I did lose was an illusion, and I was grateful to be rid of it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing stories and dramatic twists.